basic things you need to know. The history of Western civilization. I started studying German. That was nice to do. What the hell else did I ever study that first year?
Well, your basic years are basic.
Your basic English course
and learn how to pass courses in college.
Yeah, with the ever and infinitely ironic Professor Norvish. I remember freshman English. Turns out he was a hell of a nice guy, but I thought he was a bit overly ironic, you know, for an impressionable young freshman straight out of a very small scale Catholic high school. His irony did very little to feed my creativity at that time, although my creativity was still, you know, well under the soil. I was quite creative, but it was well under the soil in terms of conscious.
Your second and third years then were progressions from that. You now knew what you were doing there, hadn't decided what it was you were going to end up as, but knew how to pass courses anyway.
Oh yeah, right. It took me a while to gather that, yeah, but I had
that usually takes about a year.
Yeah.
Most people drop out their freshman year, or they continue.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, you started taking a specific series of courses to graduate.
I called my major English / journalism.
English journalism.
Yeah, right. And I started the co-op scene with a job as a copy boy at the Boston Globe, where I did a lot of running around, and it was a fascinating scene for me. I still, by the way, had a part-time job at the Harvard University dining halls. I kept that for a number of years.
And didn't feel the elitism of Harvard over your position at Northeastern.
You don't worry too much about elitism at Harvard when you're working behind the dish tray window, for example. There's there's a fair bit of camaraderie in the kitchen, whether your fellow worker is a Harvard student or, you know.
And how many Harvard students did they actually have behind the window?
A few.
A few.
Yeah.
So you had 50 people working, and you had
50 people working? No.
Well, we're talking the kitchen. So
yeah, but each dining hall had its own own setup, man.
That's right. I remember Harvard.
I remember, and we'd rotate. Sometimes you'd be on one end of the feeding the dish machine, sometimes the other end unracking trays. Sometimes you'd be at the window pulling them in and separating the the various articles off a tray and dumping the trays into the pig.
Did your mother ever feel?
Wait. The pig. No. I can't just say the word pig. There's a lot of people that won't know what the hell I'm talking about. It's the garbage disposal unit, right? And sometimes when you had too many glasses, you'd take a handful of 4 and you drop them down the pig and then ground them up very nicely. Thank you. Go ahead. Okay. And sometimes when the trays piled up, and the Harvard students on the other side of that wall were getting impatient and shoving their trays in, sometimes by some strange miracle of gravity or anti-gravity or antimatter or something, those trays would magically go flying back out into the dining hall. Sometimes, not very often. What was your question, Tom?
Well, we'll go to your third year then.
Yeah.
The second year you decided what you want to do. Third year you're pretty well into it. And you're taking mostly those journalism courses or courses to fit your needs at that time.
Well, the journalism courses only amounted to one.
And we're talking 1962 now.
Yeah, 1 or 2 a year. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you still hadn't reached your poetic decision.
I was doing some of that. I took creative writing classes in my, let's see, maybe not my second, but my third, fourth, fifth years. There's a middle year called middler year.
Okay.
Yeah. And and I was intrigued both by the possibilities of poetry and of fiction.
And you were reading at this point your influences.
Well, I was reading.
Aside from text.
Yeah, let me think. I was reading James Joyce and let's see, to fling one to the other side of the Irish Sea, I was reading Evelyn Waugh and William Blake and All kinds of people. I was reading all kinds of
Were
people.
you reading all of your beat poets?
As a matter of fact, I didn't come across Allen Ginsberg until 1965.
Hesse?
Oh yeah, I read some Hesse. I read a few of his novels while I was an undergraduate.
As an undergraduate?
Yeah, yeah. I read Damien and
Probably Beowulf, that's the one everybody gave me.
he didn't write Beowulf, did he? Huh?
I believe he did. Am I wrong?
Did he? Let me put the question to you out there. Did Hermann Hesse write Beowulf, or did he not? If you know the answer to this question,
call Blue and tell him. Okay, so you didn't get to read avant-garde shit until later.
Mhm.
You didn't read the realist.
no.
Do you know what the realist was at that point?
The realist was it was a funky little rag.
Krasner and
Say it.
Paul
Yeah.
Krasner, who still is putting it out, by the way. He's coming out.
Who are some of the names that you remember of it? Do you?
From the realist?
Yeah.
Wolfe.
You mean Tom Wolfe?
Tom Wolfe,
Yeah.
the fellow that's now putting out the right stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he wrote for him.
Yeah.
Who else wrote for him?
What's the name of his latest novel that I?
Kupferberg
Kupferberg. Yeah.
wrote for him, who then turned into the Fugs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with Kupferberg was the other one. Who was the other guy with Kupferberg that came out with that album?
Glumf.
Glum?
Without an with no umlaut. Remember? You don't remember Glum?
I don't remember the name, no.
Okay. Skip Glum.
Yeah, there must have been a whole set of people that wrote the time that I can't remember. Yeah.
Well, I was.
But that came out then.
I was messing around myself, experimentally with. What I wrote was poetry of a fairly traditional mold, but even the stuff I was writing as an undergraduate, I discovered in retrospect, showed some real promise of poetic energy, of originality without any kind of intentive, without a conscious break with traditional mold. MOULD or whatever.
Mold, yeah. So then 63 came along and Kennedy got knocked off. What were you doing when Kennedy got knocked off?
I was working as a reporter, full time on my work schedules out of Northeastern for the Quincy Patriot Ledger. And in fact, I had only a few weeks before started my reporting job with the Ledger, and I discovered Kennedy's assassination. I guess about 10 minutes after they began reporting it. I discovered it at home in Somerville, where I grew up.
Still living with your family?
Yeah. I stayed at my family's house until I left the country for Columbia when I joined the Peace Corps. I joined the Peace Corps. I went into the Peace Corps. I started their training program. I guess about 6 months after I finished college.
Which was 85? Or
65? Yeah, I get the decades confused. But, yeah, and I was working full-time for the Ledger after graduation from Northeastern. They bumped my salary up to an astounding, what was it? I don't know, 125, something like that, dollars a week.
So at this point, you were still more interested in the journalism aspect of writing than the creative.
That's what I was doing, but